From time to time, a report comes along that not only enumerates the current state of affairs in the market, but also ignites dialogues, sparks thinking, and transforms how we view the road ahead. This is exactly what the Indus Valley Report 2025 is doing. This Bloom report is all over Twitter or X. It had been the most trending thing when it was released. So what is the buzz, you might ask? Well, every year, the Indus Valley Report offers a bird's eye view of aspects of India and the Indian economy. What stood out in this report this time was the consumption patterns shaping the economics in India. Curious yet? Well, we'll tell you more. Welcome to Bottom Line. In today's episode, we are going to decode the Indus Valley Report for you and dive into where the economy is heading, the structural challenges it has to overcome, and how consumer habits are changing. One thing that this report has done is that it has challenged assumptions, clearly. The best example of this is India's economy over the past 5 years. It has been quite the ride. Record contraction, dramatic snapback, inflation, and policy pivots. We're talking about a massive spending jump, interest rate spikes, and a consumption-heavy growth engine that's different from investment-fueled ones like China. And if India is now the world's fastest-growing major economy, there are teething challenges as well. A flatlining of wages, the rising cost of borrowing, balancing acts between fiscal discipline in the short run and growth in the longer one. So while the headlines gush over India's soaring markets and AI aspirations, the real story is how we manage these transformations. Here's the thing, guys. When we talk about economic growth, we're imagining factories, industrial output, and huge investments, right? But consider this. India's economic growth is driven by consumption, not investment. The report says that in India, private consumption accounts for 56% of the GDP. 56% of our GDP by expenditure is from consumption. Really? Well, yes, it is a paradox. People are definitely spending, but our consumption per capita is still low. And why is that? That is because the high-risk spenders. Nearly 2/3 of discretionary spending is by India's top 10% of earners, or the India One. India One. Let's understand that better. Well, according to the report, there are two. No, actually, there are three Indias. At the very top, there's India One, the 10% of the population that runs the economy. Below them is India Two, approximately 300 million people, what we would consider the aspirational middle class. They consume a lot but save before spending. And then there are India 3, the 1 billion plus people who are a bulk of the population but contribute almost nil to discretionary spending. What do we mean by all this? Well, let's break it down. India 1, the top 10%, high earners, luxury consumers, and economic drivers. When we talk about India 1, this group has a per capita income of $15,000 or a little over 13 lakh rupees, similar to Mexico's middle class. They are the first adopters of every premium offering, from luxury cars to designer labels to international travel. All of these and more, the entire startup ecosystem, high-end real estate, hospitality, fintech, all of these initially cater to this group, and then it all trickles down. Next, we have India 2. The middle class, aspirational, price-conscious, and digitally savvy. These are $3,000 or 2,61,000 rupee per year per capita people. They are ambitious, aspirational, and judicious about their spending. They are the ones driving sectors like OTT media, fintech lending, edtech, and gaming. They love subscriptions, but they don't like overpaying for them. UPI, autopay, and buy now, pay later options, that's in large part due to India 2's spending patterns. Then there is India 3, the non-monetizable class. The 1 billion plus people who make up the bottom of the pyramid, earning roughly 87,000 rupees a year. Their consumption is all but entirely spent on essentials, food, transport, basic health. And for most businesses, they are just not a market worth pursuing. The exceptions are WhatsApp and YouTube, both of which cross economic boundaries. And of course, there is FMCG. But when it comes to e-commerce, fintech, and consumer brands, India 3 is not where the money is. So who exactly is doing the consuming? That question takes us to the heart of the three Indias, a framework that explains the stark economic divide shaping the nation's future. Let's talk a bit about the rise of premiumization and the experience economy. Everyone isn't merely consuming more in India One. They are changing the economy instead. Luxury markets booming. The high-end real estate market exploding. But here's the most interesting part. India One is not growing in size. It's just getting richer. Concentration of wealth is at an all-time high. The top 10% hold more of India's national income today than ever before, while the middle 40% and bottom 50% continue to naggingly experience stagnant growth. And here's something really shocking. 2% of Indians pay income tax despite this massive wealth. That's 10% in China and 43% in the United States. That's to say, India One is benefiting from supercharged economic expansion, but it is not translating into a wider economic boom. Wealth isn't the only thing that India One is accumulating. They're also spending it differently. And this is where things get interesting. There's a massive movement from ownership to experience. Travel is now a top priority. International travel-related outward remittances jumped to $17 billion in FY24 from just $7 billion in FY20. Luxury hotels, well, Indian guests account for over 50% of the clientele at Oberoi Uday Vilas and similar places. 2 decades ago, it was just 8%. Gated communities, they hold 40% of urban households but account for more than 50% of total expenditure on consumption. And it doesn't stop there. Concerts, live events and festivals are thriving. You remember that tickets for Coldplay's concert in India were sold out minutes after the band announced the event. India One's demand for premium entertainment has in fact resulted in more international artists opting to do shows here. Now, this is where we come to the great dilemma. Whereas India One is performing well, India 2 and India 3 are left behind. With inflation, low wage growth and less upward mobility, the gap is growing. The teething problems that I mentioned earlier, that's what we're going to discuss next. Now, India risks becoming a two-layer economy, where a small elite prospers at a global level while the majority lags behind. GDP may be booming, but if only 10% reap the benefits, is that real progress? The key question, can India expand its consuming class or will a small fraction dictate its future? The divide is stark. Services contribute 54% of the GDP, but employ just 31%. IT, finance and consulting thrive, with the IT BPO sector alone generating $245 billion annually. Yet, most non-IT and consulting folks remain on the sidelines, consuming far less. And manufacturing, well, that's just 17% of GDP, despite all those policy pushes like the PLI scheme. China built its economy on factories, lifting millions out of poverty. India, however, jumped straight to services without a strong industrial base. Manufacturing jobs that once provided steady incomes are scarce. The knowledge economy, IT, finance, professional services, demands an educated and English-speaking workforce. If you fit in, great. If not, as Bloom put it in the Indus Valley report, good luck. This deepens inequality. Most Indians remain in low-paying, informal jobs while a small elite thrives. The result? An economy where the top surges ahead, leaving the rest behind. So how do we bridge this gap? Before we highlight the efforts and steps being taken to solve this massive problem, we have to look at a very important concept in economics: gross fixed capital formation, or GFCF. As a matter of fact, the Indus Valley report came up with some concerning findings. The gross fixed capital formation measures how much of an economy is invested in long-term assets like factories and infrastructure. India's GFCF surged from 21.8% in the 1990s to 36.4% between 2010 and 2019, but it dipped to 34.4% between 2020 and 2023. Meanwhile, China maintained far higher investment levels, peaking at over 43% in the 2010s and still at 41.9% between 2020 and 2023. So, why does this matter? Think of GFCF as a nation reinvesting in its future, like upgrading a shop to boost sales. Higher GFCF means confidence in growth, while lower levels signal weaker investment. India's challenge? A declining savings rate, which limits funds for new projects, slowing economic expansion. Declining savings rate and its impact on investments. Gross savings rate, the amount of money that the households, businesses and governments are saving rather than spending. India's savings rate rose from 22.8% in the 1990s to 32.5% in the 2010s, but has fallen to 29.2% in 2020-2023. China again has numbers much higher than this, over 44% across all periods. And here's my absolute favorite, gold. India loves gold. Households hold 16% of their wealth in gold assets versus 2 to 3% in developed economies. So we are one of the largest importers of gold. No surprises there. This also means less financialization of savings and a widening current account deficit. Adding to this is India's low foreign direct investment or FDI. From FY11 to 20, FDI inflow in China was $2.4 trillion, or over 4 times higher than India at $512 billion in the same period. Higher FDI helps bring better technology, stronger infrastructure and improved productivity. But India's lower inflows have held back its ability to scale up capital-intensive industries. And then there's land. Industrial land is costly in India. The average small factory costs $2.1 million to set up here versus $793,000 in Thailand. That's nearly triple the amount. And borrowing money. Well, in India, SMEs pay interest rates of 12 to 13%, whereas in China, it's between 3 to 5%. That's like doing a marathon while carrying a backpack full of bricks. So what is India doing about it? India's manufacturing push, is it enough? The government's taking a 3-point attack. Bans on imports and increasing tariffs and PLI incentives. Air conditioner imports banned. Laptop import restrictions relaxed but still protective. Drone imports blocked to support local startups. Even there are restrictions on solar panels to increase domestic production. Then we have tariffs. India's standard tariff rate of 11% in 2022 was 4 times higher than that of China at 3%. That's a tactic to shield local industries, but it also raises the cost of imported goods. And of course, there's the big one, the production-linked incentives or PLI. The government is pouring in $33 billion or approximately 2.7 lakh crore rupees across 14 sectors over a period of 5 years. The per year figure here could go up from 7,000 crore rupees in FY23 to 45,400 crore rupees in FY27. And guess what? It is working. India's manufacturing push is showing results. AC imports dropped from 45% in FY18 to 5% in FY23. Electronics exports soared from $4.9 billion in FY17 to $37.1 billion in FY24. And the toy industry, by the way, flipped from importer to exporter, with tariffs rising to 70% and exports tripling since 2014. But the competition is fierce. While China's exports to the US fell by $100 billion between 2018 and 2024, India's rose 60%. Yet, Vietnam's surged at 300%. China still dominates with a 40.3% market share in footwear, while India lags at 5.8%. Progress? Yes, but the road ahead is long. Clearly. So that's about it, folks. India's economy really is a paradox. The divide is real and it shapes everything from consumption to investment. So can India bridge this gap, or will a small elite dictate its future? What do you think? Put your thoughts down in the comments.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing. Please read the risk disclosure documents carefully before investing in equity shares, derivatives, mutual fund, and or other instruments traded on the stock exchanges.